Do you have a dream car? Mine is the Lucid Air. Are you intrigued by electric vehicles? The Lucid Air EV has been called the best driving car in the world. And the Lucid Air Sapphire is certifiably the fastest production car in the world. Listen to Lucid Driver Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts or at luciddriver.buzzsprout.com.
Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising books, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, new release, The Joy of Cruising Again, as well as other fun, informative global cruise personalities. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests. If you hear about a cruise that interests you, book it at www.thejoyofacation.com or enter to win a free cruise for two. Again, www.thejoyofacation.com. We really appreciate your feedback, so leave us a text. Paul can't reply, but he may read your text on the air.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul, and this week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, I am delighted to welcome back Bill, creator of Ritzy Travel Guide. I became familiar with Ritzy Travel Guide one day during my aimless browsing of YouTube cruise channels. And I noticed I would stop on Ritzy Travel Guide because the videos were not only rich in production value, but also rich with information. I knew I had to invite Ritzy Travel Guide on the Joy of Cruising podcast. Bill shared an amazing cruise and land-based travel story with his wife. We are glad to have Bill back to catch us up on what they have been up to since we last spoke. Scheduled to start just a week after our previous Ritzy Travel Guide, a 6-week Asian trip, including jungle touring in Thailand, staying at a train-themed hotel in the deep jungle, feeding elephants breakfast from a treetop canopy, and staying in a bamboo eco resort on stilts over the water, and finally taking an overnight sleeper from Bangkok to Chiang Mai. Of course, we first want to hear about that. Welcome back, Bill, the Ritzy Travel Guide, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Hi, Paul. It's great to be back. Thank you very much for having me back on again.
Well, it's great to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm well. Probably a bit worn out. We've just done 4 cruises in 7 weeks, so that was pretty cavalier, sort of mad scheduling, wasn't it?
Yeah, that is. We've done 2 cruises in 4 weeks, so we're almost as bad as you. For starters, say something in general about where you're from. What part of the world you live in now? How did you end up there? Anything you are willing to share with our listeners?
Sure, no problem at all. My name is Bill, as you said, and together with my wife, we spend pretty much, I would say, equal parts of the year. We split into 3, so a third of the time in Asia, a third in Europe, and a third in Florida, because we chase the sun and the warmth. We like the long days.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say we're probably quite adventurous when it comes to travel. I mean, we try to be. I think you only live once, and we try to experience as much as we're able to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I recently reposted your last episode. So I'm going to want you to pick up where we left off. When we had you on, you were just about to embark on your 6-week Asian journey, which I described in the intro, and it just sounds amazing. So that's the first thing I'm going to want you to talk about. But before we do, give our listeners an overview of Ritzy Travel Guide, your channel, and your approach to travel. You just did kind of talk about your approach, spending, a third of your time in Asia, a third in Europe, and a third in cruising out of the U.S. Tell us a little more about Ritzy Travel Guide.
Yeah, I suppose what we try to do is we try to show things as they really are, as they really happen to us. So our output is probably more, you'd call it, to the travelogue or the documentary style rather than vlogging. I try to start each episode giving people some context and background to where we're traveling at. So if it's a cruise video, we'll tell you about the cruise line, some history to it, because sometimes you watch maybe a program on TV or on YouTube and you don't know that much about it, and you jump straight in and you're a bit you're a bit wanting to know some more background. So we try to give some background of where we're going before we then move into how our experience was it, just to give people a clear picture. So, I mean, for example, if we're covering Malta in the Mediterranean or going boating in Vietnam, we do try to start off giving people some insight into what they can expect and then how it was for us. And then at the end of it, we try to wrap up with some sort of conclusion, whether we thought it was fun, whether it was good, the bullet points, the aspects that maybe each person could try to get out of the trip, and then give it a verdict, if you like.
Yeah, I find that style of yours very helpful. Uh, I feel so informed when I watch your videos.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, obviously, everybody has a different interpretation. So, what I try to do is give the facts first, because those are indisputable, where something is, what you could expect, and then give our version of how it was, whether we agree with other people. Because if you send two people to the same place, they're all going to do different things and all have a different experience out of it. But I do try to give some facts first, so people have some sort of grounding in what's there.
Hmm. Hmm. So as I alluded to earlier, pick up where we left off. You went on that amazing 6 week Asian journey. Uh, Literally, I think you were leaving the week after our podcast aired. So, take us through your itinerary and give us the highlights of that trip.
I tell you what, it was a lot of fun, and it's something, if anybody's fit or able, I would encourage them to do. You don't need a huge amount of sporting ability. So when I say fit and able, but at least sort of able to do most of the things we did. We started off in northern Thailand and it ended up in Vietnam. It was a combination of just looking through some magazines, seeing some documentaries on TV, and thought that looked like a lot of fun. So the first part was we went to a train themed hotel and resort in northern Thailand, right in the jungle. Imagine the Orient Express, except that it's stationary. The resort was conceived, he's a very famous guy. He's called Bill Bensley, who has designed various resorts around Asia. What he did was he tracked down and bought up some old vintage train carriages, rolling stock engines. Some of these were 70 or 100 years old and in very pretty poor condition. They were just abandoned on the side of some tracks. He then went through the painstaking process of restoring them back to how they would have been in their glory days. I mean, they're beautifully, lovingly restored. A lot of brass, a lot of very polished veneers and woods. So when you stepped inside, it was like you were in the Orient Express, except you were in the Asian version of it. There were probably, I can't remember the exact number, maybe 18 to 25 of these restored carriages. And so it was the best of all worlds. You had the beauty of the trains, but you were in a resort. So you also had the pool, you had all the restaurants and the facilities, and the restaurants were also in converted rolling stock and carriages. You had a French-inspired one, some fusion ones, with the most beautiful scenery. So if anybody who had any sort of passion for trains or had watched an Agatha Christie movie, Murder on the Orient Express, or any of these old famous movies, or a Hitchcock movie, or whatever else, it took you right back to 75, 100 years ago, in a stunning location. I mean, that was a fantastic way to start.
So your accommodations were in kind of like a sleeper car.
Exactly. But they'd taken the shell and then basically, well, it wasn't to say gutted, because these were 100 years old. They were in no fit state. So they repainted them, they restored them, and then put beds in them, because obviously beds weren't in there. But they, as much as possible, tried to keep to how the decoration would be, the style and feel of it. They put some verandas or balconies on the end of them so you could look out onto the lakes. It was a chain of lakes with swans going by. You got up, because we try to get up early anyway, but you'd love to there because when the sun rises at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, you hear the most amazing wildlife that unless you came from that part of the world, you would never have heard before. So it drew you out there at dawn. You sat there with your local coffee. Thailand makes fantastic local coffee. And then they have a combination of Thai foods, Asian foods, some French and Western foods, because a lot of that part of the region, Indochina, was under French occupation for a while. Not Thailand itself, but a lot of the surrounding area. So fusion food. It was a fantastic resort. I would really recommend it. The video's out there. I won't go into hours of detail because it would be too much detail. But the video's out and people can see it. And I would wager anybody that sees it, not just because it's my video, but anybody who sees it because of the merit of the resort would want to book it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I trust you have some photographs.
Absolutely. We took loads of photographs. We took loads of videos. We were there for 4 nights, which was just about the right amount of time because then we pushed on to part 2, 3, and 4 of our trip. But it's stunning. It's so photogenic.
Were your accommodations luxurious?
I would say it was definitely 5-star, but thankfully Asia is quite affordable by Western standards. So we were paying $200-300 a night. It depends on the deal you get. So by cruise standards, no more than a cruise price. I mean, sometimes ultra luxury cruises run to more than that per night, but
Sure.
certainly no more than that. And you were getting meals and drinks, again, depending on the package, plus the use of the resort. So it was a 5-star Orient Express style journey for not for a reasonably affordable figure if you saved up for it.
Mm-hmm. Did you do anything, what did you do at the resort other than just appreciate the amenities and accommodations?
Well, actually, surprisingly enough, I mean, you don't think of it, but Thailand is a wine growing region because this is up in the mountains of Thailand or halfway up the mountains. So they have some pretty spectacular wines. So we went wine tasting. Around there, there's a lot of elephant sanctuaries. And so after we went to visit one, but then afterwards we went to stay at one. So there's a lot of elephant sanctuaries, a lot of treks and outdoor activities. Bamboo rafting. We went bamboo rafting on these amazing, about 2 or 3 foot wide, very, very long. I would think 50, 60 foot long, these rafts. And you go on them and you go helter-skelter down this raging rapid, if you like. It's a thrill a minute. I tell you, that's an adrenaline rush.
So you were there, you say 4 days?
Yeah, 4 nights, 5 days.
4 nights. Okay. What was the next leg?
Well, the next leg, we then went off to the elephant sanctuary. In Thailand, for years, they've had these elephant areas where you can go and ride an elephant, but people are starting to frown upon it now because they feel that's not giving the elephants their best life. And so it very much now in Thailand they're changing their way of showing foreigners elephants. Now you have sanctuaries. These are rescued elephants who've been rescued from abuse or from overlogging. Generally, elephants are used a lot in logging, and so they take these elephants and they've been open for a while. So now they've got second generation elephants, third generation elephants who've been born from parents of rescue, and you live in these beautiful bamboo lodges. They're made out of bamboo, but to a comfortable standard. So you get in there, you've got aircon, you haven't got TV or things like that. So it's partly living the jungle life, but to a comfortable standard.
Right.
So you've got comfortable beds and whatever, and you're there depending on how long you want to be there. You can be there. We were there for 3 days. You could be there for 1 or 5. I think 3 is a very good way. And they teach you how the elephants live amongst the villagers. These villagers have amazing languages. Like if you've ever seen the Dr. Dolittle movie, the mahouts, the handlers of these elephants, really do speak to the elephants via a series of grunts and growls and murmurs. So you see how they talk to each other. You feed them breakfast in the morning. The elephants come to you and your huts, and you feed them breakfast, which is elephants and sugar cane and a variety of other things. Then they've got a medicine center because elephants, strangely enough, are liable to constipation. So they show you how to blend the food, what you put in it to keep elephants regular. It's a fantastic experience. They've got You have your lunch, your breakfast, your dinner there. They even have a rather nice cocktail bar where they whipped up some of the most amazing cocktails. There's something called the Bangkok Mule, which is a variation of a Moscow Mule, where they do it with lemongrass and ginger, and they put chilies in it. It's a wickedly fiery cocktail. Probably one of the best cocktails I've ever had in my life, prepared right in the jungle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So these bamboo huts were not in a resort. They were in the jungle.
Yes, I mean they've created a resort environment because they own the land, and they've created. I don't know. You probably call them a lodge. A hut is probably a bit disingenuous. It probably doesn't give them credit for what they've done because they're beautifully crafted accommodation. Let's call them a lodge. They're one-bedroom lodges with a nice, probably 20 foot by 20 foot, something like that, with an attached bathroom, which is like under the stars. In some places, you might call it glamping or luxury camping, if you like. And you've got your own little veranda there. You can sit there in the morning, have your coffee, or in the evening. So it's a combination of relaxing in your lodge, but really the point of it is to be with the elephants. You go there and you bathe them, and they bath, and then straight after bathing, they then want to go into a mud bath because to them that's like a massage. They scrub themselves in these mud pools. I mean, it's the most ridiculous amount of mud that gets plastered over them, and then they wash them, and you help wash them, and then they throw sand on themselves and mud, and you think, what's the point? They've just washed themselves, but they do it all over again. It's fantastic.
And I'm sure you have great pictures of that as well. You know, your first two stops on that Asian swing are two unique uh, sets of accommodations.
We know how you see something, you think that really inspires me to book it. That really piques your interest. Sometimes, you struggle. You think, how many times am I going to go and do another hotel in Hawaii? Or am I going to go and see the same tour attractions in the Mediterranean, whatever? Sometimes you see something that's so different. It's just a matter of plucking up the courage to do it. Not plucking up the courage because it's bad accommodation, it's all lovely accommodation, but just going that little bit beyond your comfort zone.
What was your next stop?
The next stop, well, we stopped off briefly in Bangkok because we had to connect to our next destination, which was in Vietnam. We thought while we're there, we've been to Bangkok a few times, but this time we really wanted to try street food because Bangkok has the most outlandish, outrageous sounding food you've ever tried. And again, we thought we've really got to try it. I mean, you can think of eating scorpions, crickets, mealworms, moths, butterflies, anything that creeps or crawls or flies, and they put it on a stick. They cook it on the open coals and then present it to you.
And you tried it all, huh?
Oh, we did. Would you have tried,
You're,
Paul?
no, you're braver than I am. In fact, I love to ask people who have stayed in exotic lands what was the most exotic thing they ate. In fact, I talked to someone else who stayed in who visited Bangkok, and they did tell me about scorpions on a stick. Sounds like you tried that.
Yes, absolutely. But well, we got a mixed platter of critters.
Did 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 any of them were any of them tasty, or you just were eating them to say that you tried it?
To be honest with you, they were quite heavily seasoned. So you could have been eating a trail mix, or you could have been eating some peanuts. I wouldn't say any of them were delicious. And we then went to that. So that was what you might call the grilled foods. Then there are other stalls in a few streets back where they have stews. So you have pigs trotters. That's quite you see that a lot in Germany, but they have their version: spleen, lungs, heart, just about in any part of the animal. But it was more the intestines. I don't know. They seem to be particularly preoccupied with intestines. We're used to having a leg, or a calf, or occasionally in Germany you'll see a snout or a trotter or whatever. But this was all the internal organs. Have you had a spleen, Paul?
I've had intestines.
Right. So,
In the U.S., they're called chitterlings,
okay. Do you like
and
it?
I loved it growing up. Uh, my wife doesn't eat pork, so that ended for me about 40 years ago. But But in fact, there was one year I was in the South in the military, and instead of turkey for Thanksgiving, we had chitterlings. They call them chitlins, but I'm trying to pronounce them phonetically, chitterlings. So, but yeah, those are pig intestines.
Wow, yeah. I mean, again, it all depends how they serve it because this was done in a stew, and then it's quite glutinous. A lot of these things,
Hmm.
if you have these intestine things, it's like glue. I mean, you're eating a pot of glue effectively, and then they flavor it with it could be highly spiced, a lot of chili, it could have a lot of pepper in it. So to a certain extent, they mask the flavor just to make it more palatable. I guess going back, it's because it's a fairly affordable cut of what is it, meat? A cut of animal. How about that?
So now what animals are they? It's not just pork.
Quite a lot of pork. It actually is disproportionately a lot of pork. You get some chicken parts. I mean, that's gizzards and other things, but those aren't so unique. I mean, you get those around the world as well. But the more unique one, you get snake, you get all sorts of things. But yes, now you think, I think it is. It's predominantly pork, actually, Paul.
Hmm. 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 So then was Vietnam. But now in Bangkok, did you stay at a high rise?
No, we didn't. Again, it caught my imagination. We we stayed at an old opium den. And a place of ill repute. At various times, it was an opium den and a place of ill repute, which then turned into the stock market. So there we are, sort of all dens of vice, all three rolled into one at different times in history. Same building, just had three different uses throughout its life.
Uh, and
Um,
now it's been redone.
it's redone as a what you call it boutique hotel because it probably had 30, 40 rooms, something like that. So you can they try to recreate as it would have been in the opium days. Sometimes you've seen some of these movies where they show how opium dens were. Imagine how James Bond would feel in an opium den hotel. It was something like
Hmm.
that. It was done with a lot of flair and a lot of imagination. The decoration was great fun. A lot of pictures of how the ladies of the night would have been there
Hmm.
smoking their opium pipes, and they show you some of the original opium pipes and how it was done and the scales and the weights and everything else. So you could imagine all the props and all the old decoration pieces were on the walls.
Now your stop there was en route to Vietnam.
Yeah.
So help me out. Can't remember this from geography. How long was the trek from Bangkok to Vietnam?
Okay, that's a couple of hours flight. That's fairly quick. It's just that from where we were in northern Thailand, we couldn't do it direct. So we thought rather than just hopping on two planes going the same day, go via Bangkok and have some fun there. So from northern Bangkok to and from northern Thailand to Bangkok, you could have done it on a train. We've done that before on an overnight train. That's quite fun. We just took a 1 hour flight, and then it's about an hour and a half to Hanoi, which is in northern Vietnam. And from there, we then took a 4 hour car journey to Halong Bay, which is where the cruises go from. It's difficult to give the right word because for a lot of people, when you say a cruise, it's not a cruise as most people imagine. You don't have these big cruise ships. Yes, some of the big international cruise ships do go there, but the traditional, authentic Vietnamese ships that do it aren't cruise ships. They're much smaller. They're anything from 6 people ships up to now you can get 50 or 100, but they're much smaller than what you or I would call a cruise ship,
Right.
although they call them cruise ships. So we went in one that had it was just 52 people on board. And the reason for doing that is you get much closer to the real Halong Bay because the beauty of Halong Bay is two things. Number one is sailing through it because they have these most majestic limestone cliffs and little mountains. They're not mountains, little hills that come up. Um, so scenic, it's so pretty, and there are thousands of them. So you sail very close to them, which you could only do if you're in a small vessel. When you have some of these bigger cruise ships, some of the major ones go there, but they go much further away. It's nothing like the experience because you then, as part of these smaller ships, you can do it over 2, 3, 4 nights. You go into the caves. They have some amazing caverns. You go and stop off. They do generally 2 to 3 itineraries per day, which are included in the price. So they drop you off in little tenders, and you go in and you can cycle amongst the villages, which we did, which is a huge amount of fun. We went into one place where they had all sorts of bizarre wines and liquors to try. Field mouse wine, snake sort of spirits, and cocktails. Again, you've got to try. I wouldn't say I would ever recommend field mouse wine to you, Paul, but you've got to try it. And these were ridiculously alcoholic, 100% proof. They'd set it on the table and then set light to it just to show you that it was 100% proof. You could tell it when it went down your throat, I tell you what. You try and cycle in a straight line after you come back from one of those sessions.
I'll bet they had some interesting cocktails.
We'll be right back.
The Joy of Vacation by Dream Vacations invites you to join us on a bucket list adventure to Africa. We're going to Kenya and Egypt for 14 days, April 10th through April 24th, 2027. A week in Kenya, including safaris, and a week in Egypt, including the pyramids and a 4-day Nile River cruise. This adventure includes air from the U.S., all transfers, all accommodations, private tours, and many meals. $5,000 to $5,500, depending on air, per person. Double occupancy. Only $250 per person deposit due at booking. The remainder is not due until late 2026. For a detailed itinerary, online brochure, and to book, email me at pthornton, THORNTON, pthornton @dreamvacations.com.
Oh, they did. With all these animals, because they have this belief across a lot of Asia that if you put some of these exotic animals in, it gives you a certain amount of fortitude for various parts of your body, gives you extra strength, shall we say. So there's all sorts of animals that go in there, but they have a lot of rice wines and other harvest wines that go in there. They're all very, very strong. And they think it's hysterical when you try it, because they say half the time they don't like them either. They just want to see the reaction of our faces trying them.
Now, how long was the cruise?
We did a 4-day one, but you can do anything from 1 to 4. Now, I really would encourage people to either back-to-back 2, which is what we did, to spin it out, because otherwise it's too short. Because it's a lovely experience. Again, is you're drifting by between these hills with the sun going down or coming up, depending what time of day it is. And they have lovely food on board. Because Vietnam was a French colony, they have some Indochine cuisine, and they merged the two cuisines. And lobsters are in such abundance there. They were practically giving lobsters every 10 minutes because they're so affordable out there.
Wow.
And they had mastered the cuisine of merging the two. And we had some of the best cuisine we have ever had on a cruise ship on those little Vietnamese boats.
Now you said there were 50 passengers.
Yeah, you can go right down to 6. I mean, some of these companies, there are a few companies that do it. You can have 6 passengers right up to 50. The smaller ones tend to be the older ones, the traditional wooden style ones, but they're now going a bit more modern. So they don't, the bigger ones don't look as pretty as the old ones, but they do have more facilities.
Say something about the accommodations on the cruise ship, or I don't know.
They look very, very nice.
On the vessel, I guess I should say.
Yeah, on the vessel, that's as good a word as any to say. Again, you have, just like a normal cruise ship, you have a selection. You don't have interior cabins, so they're all basically exterior, mostly with balconies now. So they're a bit bigger than the traditional cruise ship that most people go on. We booked one that was huge by cruise standards and not terribly expensive. It was I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think it was $300 or $400 per 2 nights. So it wasn't expensive compared to cruise ships. But the quality, we got a huge jacuzzi bath in the bathroom with Rapunzel style windows that opened up. Fantastic position right at the front of the boat. So again, I would thoroughly recommend it, but there's one caveat, there's one warning I would say, is that It's not as quiet as it used to be out there. People have caught on now. We first did this type of cruising about 20 years ago when Vietnam wasn't in the spotlight, when it hadn't really caught on, when adventurous travel wasn't as it is now. So yes, you do have to accept. It's a bit like going to Venice. You're not going to be the only person there. You are
Right.
not going to be the only boat there. So book it, but just be aware that it's popular.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, one highlight uh, that I could tell on this trip, on this trek through Asia, was all of your accommodations were fairly unique. Even the hotel in Bangkok, wasn't a traditional high rise.
No, and that's the beauty of it because there is such a range, and it's so easy to go and book a Hilton, but don't. It's so easy. I'm not trying to down a Hilton. I'm not trying to say don't stay at a Marriott, but if you want something full of character, full of unique qualities, then there are some really. And if you're scared of it being too basic, it's not. That there are all levels right up to the seriously opulent. But yes, there are some really characterful, unusual, unique places you can book. Do it. You'll so enjoy it.
So what was next?
We then went to an eco resort. That video hasn't come out yet. It's the missing final episode of my Asian trip. It was to an eco lodge in a place called Krabi, spelled Krabi, which is on the Thai-Cambodian border, and that was an eco lodge right over a lagoon and some swamps. It was a former rice paddy field that they'd converted to swamps. The most Robinson Crusoe style accommodation you could imagine, but a slightly posh version of it, again, for those who are worried about it. Krabi is very popular with people. It's very popular with anybody who's seen movies like The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio. They shot a lot of the scenes round there. A lot of
Okay.
Hollywood movies have been shot in or around Krabi. They don't
Mm-hmm.
tell you it's Krabi because they pretend it's somewhere else, but
Mm-hmm.
they have been shot there. Some James Bond movies have been shot there. Because it's very dramatic, the scenery there. And we were there for 4 nights in a beautiful eco lodge.
So what characterizes it as an eco lodge?
Well, that's a very good point because everybody's definition around the world is actually slightly different. I suppose that one of the main ones is not to spoil the nature of where you are, that you try to blend in and fit in. You try to use materials and woods and building material construction of the area. You try not to knock or demolish anything. You try not to use too much water. You try not to use too much electricity. It's both sort of energy consumption stroke. I would say just try to blend in with nature as it is.
Mm-hmm. So say something about the accommodations there.
Again, they were huge by traditional Western standards. And again, your dollar goes so far in some of these places. It had a big living area, a bedroom area, fantastic. It was an al fresco type. You could open any of the windows, any of the doors, and then close them off if you wanted to, and keep the aircon in. These romantic sort of jacuzzi tubs that you see, where you can imagine you're in the movie overlooking the lagoon. And there was one outside as well. There were two jacuzzis, one on the outside and one on the inside. My wife wasn't quite bold enough, and I don't blame her, to go completely without clothes. So she wore a swimming costume in the outdoor jacuzzi. But over the floodlit or the lit at night lagoon.
Were you among animals?
Oh, there were certainly animals there. I mean, we didn't come across. We went on a night safari from there, which was fantastic. You go there with your flashlights into the jungle at night. You see all types of snakes and reptiles, and you see tarantulas. You see all sorts of poisonous spiders. I suppose, though, that they're a bit shy. They don't want to come and see you. I mean, if you deliberately walk out on your own into the dead of night into the jungle, then I suppose you'll meet it, but it's not going to come to you, so to speak.
That's a new one on me, a night safari. We have a safari planned on a trip, a group trip we're organizing for 27. And there's a couple of safaris included, but I never heard of a night safari.
Yeah, oh, that's probably one of the best ones to go on. It's way more dramatic, and a lot of the animals are no nocturnal, so you've got a far greater chance of seeing them.
So you get on like small buses? I mean, how
Well, we
what?
didn't, yeah, we didn't have to. I mean, you could if it wasn't right there. For us, it was right there because we were in this mangrove stroke jungle forest. So we literally just met with the people and we walked into it. But it is it's beautifully quiet because you don't have any transport. You just walk in, you can hear the animals. The area comes alive with the sounds of it. They often encourage you to close your eyes so you can imagine it in a much better way. The cacophony of sounds that are going around you, because everything is alive at night.
Wow, wow. Now, I'm sure there were guides and all who would
Oh,
watch out
absolutely
for
have to. There's no way I would have done that on our own. That would have been
poisonous snakes and all of that.
yeah, and they point them out to you. They show them. You're there often with infrared lights, so you could because sometimes you need to turn your flashlight off because otherwise you'll scare the animals away. There's all sorts of scorpions that you can only see with an infrared light. Um, so yeah, we saw a huge number of animals, and we could have stayed there all night, but these guides wanted to go back home to bed. They didn't want to be out all night. But you know, it was fascinating.
That just sounds amazing. I mean, and every one of well, let me let you keep going. I was getting ready to say every one of your accommodations sounds unique. Keep going. You're outdoing yourself with each stop.
Well, no, and this was just a small tip because that's why we spend part of our year in Asia, for a variety of reasons. One, your money goes so much further. You're going to be doing way more experiences for your buck than you are
Hmm.
elsewhere.
Hmm.
Secondly, the cuisine is so varied around Asia. Every country has a different cuisine, so you're
Hmm.
never going to get bored. A lot of Asia is fairly close to each other, so within an hour to 2 hours flight, you can be somewhere totally different religion, totally different culture, totally different topography, mountains. For instance, next year we're going to be sorry, it depends when this comes out. In 2026, let's put it that way. 2026, we're going to be spending some time in Japan because we like Japan. It's such a safe place. They're such friendly people. They don't speak a lot of English, but that doesn't matter. You can't expect people to speak English. And it's got such a variety of experiences. So we're going to be doing that. But we do try to do a third of our time in Asia because it's so varied.
Now, you didn't mention the cuisine at the Eco Lodge.
Yeah,
What was that
because
like?
because it was in Thailand, it was predominantly Thai. People think if you haven't had a lot of Thai, well, it depends where you've had Thai. Often the Thai you get overseas is altered Thai. It's not particularly authentic. You might get a green curry or you might get a pineapple rice. Authentic Thai is a lot more interesting than that. There's a lot of nuances to it. They use a lot of lemon or lime to flavor things. They use some coconut, but not as much as you see drowned in Western varieties of Thai cooking. They use a lot of fruits, a whole range of meat. Some of the best beef we've had is in Thailand. They cook it so beautifully.
Hmm. All right. Next stop.
That was that for that particular region. We were there on that tour. We from day one to day six. Sorry, week six. We were on the route, and after 6 weeks, probably you're ready for a rest because it's an all action type of vacation.
Yeah, it really does sound like a lot of adventure. Did you now you did mention bike riding. What other kinds of activities did you do?
Well, we went just about everything. We went on tuk-tuks to motorbikes to bikes to ferries to trains. We did some train journeys. We went briefly to Malaysia. So I haven't put out a video on that one because I'm going to amalgamate it with some. The first four that I mentioned to you have gone in a video, but the Malaysian one I'm going to combine it because we're going back to Malaysia next year. We're going to go and see some orangutans in Borneo. And that's East Malaysia is an interesting one because it's the land of headhunters. I'm not sort of doing them a disfavor by saying it, but they were 100 years ago. They were cannibals in some of these places in East Malaysia.
Wow,
So
wow.
you can go to some headhunter villages where they will show you. You go into they call them longhouses. The families lived in big bamboo huts that probably 100 foot long, 200 foot long. It was like a communal hut. and they were headhunters, and they're still to this day. They've got the skulls mounted up on the ceiling. If you're a bit
Oh,
squeamish, you might not want to go and see that one, or maybe you do. Would you go and look at it, Paul?
I would.
Yes, they teach you because to them that was their way. So they teach you about witchcraft and how they used to eat and how they used to live. That's one part of East Malaysia. We're going mountain climbing up Mount Kinabalu. Well, I say mountain climbing, not literally climbing. Let's call it trekking or trailing.
Right.
We're not getting the ropes out. And then we're spending some time with the orangutans in Borneo.
Well, that Asia trip sounds as fulfilling as it did when you were describing it when we had you on last time. Absolutely amazing. It was mostly land-based. Any other notable land-based holidays since we spoke last?
We went to Malta in June. Have you been to Malta?
No.
It's a beautiful place. If you can go by cruise or you can go land. We did a combination of we cruised there and then spent some time there. We spent 10 days there. Valletta is the cruise port that you go into. I think it is one of the most beautiful cruise ports that you can go to. There's a few right up there. Dubrovnik is very pretty. But I think in terms of on the Mediterranean, because Malta has had a varied past. It's got an Italian influence. It's got an Arabic influence. It's been British for a while. It's a melting pot of cultures. The people there are so friendly. If you're worried about going to Europe and not speaking English, then Malta should be a top candidate because they speak beautiful English. It's one of their national languages, and you get this melting pot of foods. It's a stunningly beautiful place to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about cruises. What's the latest cruise you've been on? Let's work backwards.
Okay, in what most recent to before that, or the other way around? Would you like me to go?
No, your last cruise.
Okay, well, we just got off literally at the point of recording this 3 days ago. We were just on Oceania and their new flagship, the Allura. And have you been on Oceania?
No, I've heard great things about. I was in the I was thinking of a luxury type cruise to go on, my first. I haven't been on any luxury cruises, and I really did consider Oceania. I ended up going on Explorer Journeys, but
Right.
Oceania is something I'd like to do as well.
I would say they're fairly comparable. Some people might say that Explorer is one notch up. Actually, on our cruise, we went past Explorer 2, and so we were having a chat in port with some of the people who got off there, people who've done
Hmm.
both. You're going to have fans who are loyalists of one or the other. Who one is going to say one is better, one is going to say the other. But I think Oceania with this new Allura are getting a lot of things right because for the longest time, Oceania had the older vessels, these old R-class Renaissance ships that they bought off Renaissance when they went bust. Azamara got four of them, Oceania got four of them, Princess got one for a while, Seabourn got one for a while. So for the longest time, Oceania just had the older R-class ships, and they just started building these two new ones. The Vista was the first one a year or two ago, and then Allura is the second one of those two. And I think that's really made a difference because you've got a modern luxury ship. I think probably it's one of the prettiest ships that's out there. The design, it flows beautifully, both externally and internally. The pool area is beautiful. The inside areas are also gorgeous to look at, so easy on the eye. I took some pictures and I posted them online, and people thought, well, either I've manipulated them or adjusted them or boosted them or does. I hadn't.
Uh-huh.
That was as is. It is one of the prettiest ships. It's only got 1,200 people. So for people who like small ships, that's a bit more than the Explorer. So, but you wouldn't know it because the passenger to space ratio on it is very, very good. You never had the key areas which you always complain about a ship being crowded. One, pool deck. Can you get a sun lounger? Can you get a chair? Always could. And that was sunny, hot days. days where you would expect not to, could. The buffet, you could always get a table, you could always get a place. There's got 4 speciality options. You did need to book those. Those did get a bit busy. But generally, all of the facilities on board, it passed the test for not feeling cramped.
Now, Oceania is known for their food, right?
You see, now that's I think is a slightly dangerous tactic. If I was to criticize Oceania, I would say don't say you have the finest cuisine at sea, which they plaster across all of their advert, because that's just opening them up to people to say, well, I don't think it is. Yes, okay, you should believe in your product, but to openly say we have the finest cuisine at sea is a very tall order to then meet that, because not everybody's going to agree.
Right.
We came off saying we think it's good. Is it the finest? Probably not, but that doesn't take away from them. That doesn't detract from their cuisine. I don't think it's the finest. I think they've got better on Crystal, for example. I think they've got better on Regent, but it is good.
Have you been on Explorer?
No, we're due to go on that next year, so I can't do a direct comparison.
Yeah, I've had a couple of conversations with people who have done both, and just the limited sample that I selected, Explorer has better food.
Yeah. And I think primarily we found it a bit inconsistent. You could go to the buffet and one day it was a fantastic selection. The next day it was a little bit uninspiring. The main dining room we ate in twice, because we went for a week, so 4 specialities. That was 4 nights. We did the buffet one night. We went to the main dining room twice. The first time we were really disappointed with it. The second time it was very good. They were serving caviar, they were serving lobster. It was done very well. It shouldn't be inconsistent, and this is why I think they made a mistake nailing themselves to the mast like that.
Was it all sweet?
Yes, they've all got, well, they don't call them butlers. There's no inside cabins, to my knowledge. I think there's no also sea view cabins, to my knowledge. They have some of these, what you might call infinite verandas. They're called on other ships. Well, they call it a French veranda, but it's effectively the same thing. And balconies. But yes, they're all exterior facing.
What very large? I recall on Explorer. The cabins were about 3 times the size of a cabin I'm used to.
Not the cabin grade we were in. We were on what's called concierge class, which is one up from a standard balcony. So it's a balcony plus, let's call it that, which gave us access to a couple of facilities that a concierge did. Not a yacht club, but it's like a mini yacht club, if you like. They claimed the cabins were bigger. Now, I tell you what, I was discussing this with my wife the other day. I'm going to start carrying a tape measure from now on because, they claimed it was bigger. If it is, we didn't notice, because we were thinking, is this really bigger? Yes, the bathrooms are quite spacious. The bathrooms are nice. We were actually saying we thought the cabin was quite narrow. Now, this could all be in our imagination. If it was bigger, we couldn't tell.
What was the itinerary?
We went out of Miami, and Oceania don't have access to a private island. If they do, it certainly wasn't on our cruise. We did the normal things. We did Cozumel. We did a little bit of Central America. It was a 7-night cruise, 4 stops. The itinerary was okay, but to be honest with you, it's difficult to rate a cruise line on an itinerary, isn't it? Because they've all got access to the same ports, unless they're a tiny ship and they can go to somewhere very, very small or their own private island. I think there were some really good positives. A couple of things we felt was a little bit disappointing. We felt their entertainment was disappointing. We felt that the theatre shows were a bit uninspiring. We felt some of the lounges, either before dinner or after dinner, a lot of the time there was no bands in them. We do like to listen to music. When you're in a luxury graded ship, we felt there should be more entertainment than there was, and we felt that what was there was not good. Um, we came off, and I haven't put the video out yet. It might be by the time this goes out, so I've got to really sit down and think how I'm rating it. Off the top of my head, if I was to rate our experience with Oceania now, I'd probably give it a solid 8.5 out of 10. A lot of things we think they got right, a couple of things we felt they fell short.
Yeah, Explorer didn't have very inspiring entertainment either. Now they were a much smaller ship. I mean, they top out at I think something like 900, but they claim they won't allow over 750.
Also, it depends what type of entertainment you're after. For instance, one of the major evening entertainments in one of the lounges was a string quartet. Now, if you're into string quartets, you're in paradise. You'll love it. If you don't want that, then one of the major aspects of entertainment is gone. Also, on our cruise, there was very little insight talks or lectures or whatever, which surprised us. Whether that was less than Oceania would normally give, I don't know. But there certainly wasn't much that, in that sense, that you would get on other lines.
Now I know in the last few months, you went on the new Princess ship.
Yes, the Star
Uh,
Princess.
so I want to hear what your findings were on that because I mentioned I went on two cruises in the last month or so, and that was one of them. So tell me about your
Well, it'll be
Princess.
interesting to see afterwards whether we agree or not, Paul. I came off thinking I preferred the older Star Princess ships. Not the really old ones, but the Sky Princess or the ones going back maybe 5, 10 years. I think Princess, like a lot of the other cruise lines, is chasing numbers. They're trying to be all things to all people. So they brought out the Star Princess, 4,500 odd people, right? So it's a big ship by any standard. They're trying to appeal to everybody. So they want to appeal to kids, but then it's a bit odd because there's no real kids attractions on there. There's no theme park on there for kids. There's not so much for the kids to do. So if they're appealing to kids, I'm not sure that kids are going to be totally happy. Um,
I hardly saw any kids on. When were you on, by the way?
October. They had three cruises. That the Maiden was in Europe. They had no two cruises in Europe before transatlantic to over to Miami, the repositioning. So we were on one of those two cruises that were in Europe.
Okay, okay. Then they came over. We were on, I think, the first week in November.
Yeah, so we were there literally just a couple of. You must have been on the first or second cruise that hit the States, I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah, because I know I received some gifts that, talked about inaugural and all of that.
Well, you see that was a bit crafty by Princess. They tried to pretend that the inaugural maiden was in the States. It wasn't.
Right.
It was actually in Europe, but they hoped that people hadn't spotted that one or noticed that one, so they could market it as an inaugural in North America. Actually, the inaugural was in Europe. They were a little bit naughty about that marketing.
Now, I lack the basis of comparison that you have to the old Princess ships because that was my first experience on Princess. And I have to say, I just thought it was a gorgeous. It, I'm not going to say it was the best cruise I was ever on, but it was one of the prettiest ships I've ever been on.
I think certain aspects they got absolutely right. I think the dome is beautiful. Now, did you go to one of those candlelit evenings that they hold in there throughout the evening after dinner?
No, no, but I did go to a lot of events in the dome. My travel agency, our parent company, had its annual meeting, annual conference on the ship. So we went to a lot of events. There were a lot of us on the ship and a lot of events, both classes or presentations as well as party events were held in the dome.
Yeah, it's a beautiful facility. Where it's getting some flack and some criticism is that it's not really big enough for the number of people on there. It only holds 200 something people, and a lot of those are in lounges. So,
Right.
it's not all seating. It's a beautiful venue, beautiful place, but it's not that big. Only if you do 200 hours, 4,000, only 5% of people can get in there. And if you're holding events in there, there's going to be a few disgruntled people who can't get in. So I think they've really got to work out what they're going to do with the dome.
Yeah, it was a really nice special purpose space. uh, uh, and it fit it provided good meeting facilities, and then, as I said, party facilities. But when we were partying in there, no one else was getting in there. So
No, it's locked off a lot for private events, functions, whatever else. It's a beautiful place during the day. You go there at 10 o'clock in the morning. You notice they've got the most comfy cushioning and padding in there. Those are super comfy. Those sun lounges in there. And we notice a lot of people just going in there and going to sleep. Fair enough. I mean, if that's what you want to go on a cruise, you could call it a dormitory actually in there. But it's one of the world's most beautiful dormitories. I agree with it. I think some parts of the ship are very, very pretty. I thought the other places they'd got things right was the buffet and the Americana diner at the back. I thought for once that had good flow. I think it caught a lot of people by surprise because the buffet is not by the pool.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I like the food in general, and I like the setup of the buffet. Although the celebrity edge class still wins it for me in terms of the buffets. But
I think in terms of ship, the Celebrity Edge class still beats it. I mean, I think the Sphere class has got a lot of things right. There were two major issues we had. Our video went out a couple of weeks ago, and there were two issues that I brought up in there. One is that the atrium, I think, is quite polarizing. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. It's what they call the piazza there. It's right in the center of the ship. If you'd been on any princess ships before, they've amped this up, they've ramped it, they've amplified it way more. As you probably noticed, just about all the bars are off there, all the popular ones, Bellinis, Crooners. A lot of the restaurants are off that piazza, but they have a tendency to schedule very noisy events in there.
hmm
And so if you want to sit there and have a casual drink, a quiet drink, you want to sit there and having a chat. The International Cafe is also off there. The Japanese restaurant is off there. A lot of the venues are off that piazza. And they often have a tendency of playing loud music or loud events or Zumba or workouts or game shows or something else. And it renders the rest of the outlets around there unusable. Because people want to go on cruises for different reasons. When you have it's very open plan, the center of that ship. That was one criticism. The other one was, unfortunately, our cabin. We were in what they call a cove cabin, or what is called on other ships a sheltered balcony cabin, which was clustered right around the dome. That dome at night, or any time, but particularly at night when you're trying to sleep, is like a tambourine or a drum. After 2 nights, we got zero sleep
hmm
because the sound ricochets around. So one thing I did say in my video was just check, and I pointed out the cabins which are liable to be affected by noise. We've never had to request a change of cabin on a cruise ship before based on the music that was coming from their own venue.
Well, I stayed on I think it was level 6, and I heard the music until I fell asleep. So
Yeah. For us, it was just too loud. I don't know whether we, I don't believe we're particularly susceptible to noise. It's the first time we've ever requested a change. But by and large, I would give the ship a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. Is it one of our favorites? No, I think we still prefer the Edge class.
yeah, that's still my favorite class of in the premium category. Uh, okay, what else have you done since we last spoke? I think you said Crystal. Talk about that.
Yeah, we went on Crystal. Now that's what they call ultra luxury. This is one of these terms that, unlike a hotel where there is an official designation, there's no official designation in the cruise industry. So you get this ultra luxury at the top, then you get luxury, then you get premium, then you get a variety of other sort of resort style ones. Now, there's only 4 ships or 5 ships which really get in that ultra luxury bracket, and Crystal is one of them. And they've been in that category for quite some time, but they went bust during COVID. And a lot of people felt that Crystal was never going to come back again. And in the end, they were bought up by Abercrombie and Kent, the travel company. And Crystal went from having a reasonably large fleet of expedition ships, river ships. Abercrombie and Kent just came back with 2 ships. So they've now got 2, the Serenity and the Symphony. We were on the Symphony. But both their ships are quite old, and that was the one thing that we thought, should we be concerned about it? They're both 25 to 35 years old. One is 25 years old, one is 35 years old. And although they've been trying to keep up to date with modernizing them, you can't get around the fact they're 35 years old. And so we were a little bit worried about that. But there are various things I think the Crystal has got absolutely right. One, they don't claim themselves they've got the best cuisine at sea, but other third-party people say it, and I would agree with it. We have not had better cuisine on any other cruise
Now,
ship ever.
is Crystal the one that has nonstop caviar? Is that
No, no, Regent do that. Crystal have it at various times, but what Crystal has is some fairly unique restaurants. They're the only Nobu Japanese restaurant
okay?
at sea. They call it Nobu Umi Uma. It's Pan-Asian because Nobu, I don't know if you've been to Nobu, it's actually got a blend of sort of cuisines. That was fantastic. The Italian, I don't think we've ever had a better Italian on land as we have had at sea. They're Michelin chef restaurateurs who curated the menu and the meals on there. That was absolutely stunning. They have Beef Bar, which is a steak place or a meat place speciality that started in Monte Carlo and is now in a variety of places around the world. One of the best steaks we've ever had. The main dining room, you'd think, why would you go to the main dining room when you've got fantastic speciality? Because there's only a limited number of speciality, and if you go for a week, you will have run out of the speciality. So you go to the main dining room. It is the best, again, for us, bar none, main dining room afloat. It's as good. Their main dining room on Crystal is as good as other people's speciality, or better than other people's speciality.
Oh wow, oh wow. Yeah, that's one thing that not saying Explorer is in the class of Crystal, but Explorer they did not have, unlike Crystal and what's the other one you went on?
Oceania?
Oceana. They didn't have a main dining room at all.
Yeah.
They just had specialty restaurants, and then they had something you wouldn't dare call a buffet, but it's sort of like a food hall, more food hall than buffet. Uh, but again, to call it a buffet is really selling it short. Um, and that was amazing. I mean, that served as their main dining room for us. But you could eat so many different things because of this food hall concept.
Sure. And now on the reverse side of it, you have to say, are you getting value for money? Because ultra luxury lines are expensive. For example, a typical cruise on Crystal, depending if you catch them on a Black Friday sale, but let's just assume an everyday price, not in a sale, it's going to cost you $7,000 to $10,000 for a week.
Right.
So that is substantially more expensive than a typical cruise. In fact, even amongst the ultra luxury, it's right up there. At times Crystal's more expensive than Regent or Seabourn or Silverseas. It's right up there in terms of cost. Plus, their ships are older than others. Regent have several brand new ships. Likewise with Silverseas, brand new ships. Seabourn not quite so new, but so you could say, why is Crystal charging so much for older ships? So it'll be interesting because they've just announced that they're going to be bringing out 2 new builds. They haven't had new builds for 20 odd years. So they're bringing out 2 new ships in 28, I believe, and 30, something along those lines. So yeah, I mean, not everything was fantastic on Crystal. We had a few issues which we felt could have been done better, but we felt they were getting a lot right. But it's expensive. It's expensive. There's no other way around it. It's expensive.
And then I know you went on very much a mainstream cruise, although this ship kind of signals that this newbie has arrived, and that's MSC World America.
We did, yes, because the last time we went on MSC, we put out a video saying "never again." That was the thumbnail, "never again."
I've heard that many times about MSC, but starting to hear that a lot less.
Because we've been, I'm trying to say this in a word that doesn't get me into trouble. We've been encouraged back onto MSC by MSC, in the hope that I might come out with a different verdict than my first video suggested, and they offered to come on yacht class and see a different side. And I said, no, I don't want to go on yacht club because less than 5% of the ship is yacht club. 95% of people are not going in a yacht club. So I want to show people what 95% of people are going on. That's the real ship. And any ship within a ship suite should be reasonably good. That should be a given. So, but what's the other 95% like? So when MSC World America came out, I thought, well, I want to try it because at the back of my mind, I felt that a ship that was designed specifically for the American market, which that one is, maybe they're going to do it different. Maybe they're going to improve some of the comments that people have made. And so the fact that it's home ported in the States was one of the primary drivers to try it out. Because all the complaints people say about MSC in Europe are, in fact, it's got multiple languages. If you go on most sailings, not out of the UK, that's not so bad. But if you go out of continental Europe, they waste a lot of time by giving all the announcements in 4, 5, 6, 7 languages. They say that it's for a non-English speaker, it's not really very viable. You're going to feel outnumbered or you're not going to understand. It's a more hectic pace. It's a different pace. Different palettes. So we wanted to try one because I think MSC were really trying to bring out a winner for America. They wanted to prove that they could be as good as Royal Caribbean, because I think Royal Caribbean is who they're trying to beat. That, without them saying it, is what their target is.
Sure. Now, when you went on MSC and said never again, what ship was that?
That was on Virtuosa. That was a couple of years ago. Now, that was out of the UK. So we didn't have the full European version. Maybe we had a hybrid version, which is just as well, because maybe my thumbnail might have been even worse if we'd had the full European version of it.
Yeah.
That was Virtuosa, which was the class down, slightly smaller, but still big. I mean, all these newest MSC ships are 6,000 plus.
Yeah,
I think
I went on Virtuoso's sister ship, I think, Meraviglia.
Yeah, same class,
Yeah,
correct.
yep, okay. So what was different with MSC World America? Did they convert you, or they?
I think they handled the numbers better because this was one of the biggest complaints. Now, that's not necessarily because it was based in America, because it's a different class of ship. But I think the layout of these two, these are called the World class. You got World Europa was the first one, then you World America, and World Asia is coming out next year. Odd name, bearing in mind it's going to be going nowhere near Asia. It's going to be based in Europe. So why they're calling it World Asia? I think because they're having a few Asian eateries on it, but it's not going anywhere near Asia. So it's a different class of ship than the Meraviglia or the Virtuosa. But I think the layout did handle the numbers better. I still think if we had a criticism of the World America, still at times it felt unbelievably packed. 6,500 odd people there. We could never, unless you got up at the crack of dawn, get a sun lounger, because everybody was out there at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, reserving their space and then disappearing, never to be seen again for the rest of the day, despite the notes that went out saying don't do that. A lot of the pubs, I think the theming on World America, and actually not just World America, a lot of the recent MSC ships is very nice. You go into the Master of the Seas pub, it's been beautifully done. They've got a fantastic sports bar on World America. They've got all the specialty outlets are nice. They've got some beautiful... No, I don't think anybody criticized MSC for not having pretty looking ships. The problem is, can you get in any of them? Can you get in any of these outlets? You struggle to get into any of these bars, any of these restaurants. They're all packed. There just aren't enough of them for the given number of people.
Now, in the past, they've struggled, at least, in some of what I've read, they've struggled with food. Although when I went on Meraviglia, the specialty restaurants were fine. The buffet and main dining room was a step down. How was the food?
I think that's still probably the case. I think actually their specialty dining isn't that badly priced. It's anywhere between 35 to 55 or 60, depending which outlet you go to, which, although that sounds expensive, is cheaper than what the opposition is nowadays. You go into Celebrity substantially more than that. You go into Royal Caribbean substantially more. So it's not expensive and it's not bad. Is it the best specialty at sea? No, but it's not bad. But yes, the weak link for us this time was the buffet. When we were on Virtuosa, we rated that as good. To us, we feel this has gone backwards.
Wow.
We feel the quality of the ingredients of the buffet has gone worse. There's plenty of it. There's no denying there's plenty of options. If you were to count the number of serving stations and options, there's probably 130 different types of food totally, if you were basing everything on numbers. But do I think it's as high quality as it was? No, personally to me. But then that's just me. I felt that the spend per head on the budget per person, to me, it felt like it wasn't as good as it was. It's not bad, but I feel that's gone backwards.
Now, have they fixed this? When I went on Meraviglia, my biggest complaint and what I said was the reason so many veteran cruisers of other, competitive lines like Carnival and Norwegian or what have you, were saying never again is on Meraviglia, not only was the buffet just okay, but there was no alternative. There was no complimentary food outlets that you could go to during the day, and so that
They
made
have improved that
that made
slightly.
the buffet a madhouse all the time.
Yeah, they've improved that situation slightly in the sense they've now got a buffet and a half. You've got the main buffet on one deck, and then just one deck away, you've got like a half buffet, which is open at various times. So they've tried to spread it out. I could say a buffet and a half because they're not both the same size. You've got one main one, and then you've got an additional one, which is like a slimmed down version. Also, down much lower down on the promenade deck, they've got like a quick serve, you'd call it a diner, fast food outlet. That's also complimentary. So
Okay.
you can go there and get some food. And there's a couple of other places. But yes, that still is a weak point. What is included in your fare? And I think that's why MSC is good value compared to the others, is because they have kept a tight, strict control over what food is available throughout the day. When the buffet is shut, apart from the diner, there aren't that many options. You can go to the pub, but that's going to cost you. So the food, I wouldn't have said, if we were to go through what we liked and disliked, they've got, in effect, two theatres. They've got the main theatre, and then they've got what's called the arena, where 2 or 3 times per cruise they put on two outstanding shows. They did a Queen tribute act. They then did a music through the ages theatre. When I say tribute act, that sounds like that, I'm not doing it justice. It was a production show. They had gone and filmed a Philharmonic orchestra somewhere else, I think in Europe somewhere, and used that as a backing with huge wraparound screen. It was a very immersive experience. It's probably one of the better shows or better venues and shows we've seen at sea for a while. That caught us by surprise. Their arena is really very, very good. We thought the entertainment was mostly good. Plenty of, if you're a party person, plenty of parties going on. The calendar, the daily calendar was stocked full of activities. If you're an activities person, you're going to like World America. They slot them in from morning till night. The cabin, surprisingly, we really liked. We were again in one of these infinite type balconies. I wanted to pick that one to see how it directly compared to the Celebrity Edge and the Royal Caribbean ones. I have to say they've done a really good job on their cabin. It looks upmarket. It looks much nicer than the price point you've paid for. It was a really nicely designed, good quality cabin. So we got no issues with the cabin. We got no issues with the nightly entertainment. The specialty dining was fine, but our biggest problem is still as it was before. It feels packed. It feels full. Several venues you can never get into. The pool area good luck trying to find anywhere to sit by a pool unless you get up at a crack of dawn and don't move, or have the risk of somebody chucking your towel off and taking it themselves. It still feels full.
Bill, let's talk about the future. I know you have a lot of great cruises and travel planned. Tell our listeners about what you have coming up.
Well, we're still aiming to mix land with sea because I think that's a great balance. There are certain places around the world you can't get by sea. Also, you can't do slow travel or measured travel by sea because you can't necessarily stay in one place for more than you might get an overnighter, but that's pretty much it. So we continue to mix our land base with our sea base. So as I said, we're going to be spending some time in Asia and Japan next year. Looking forward to that. We're going to be we're penciling in, there's a couple of things we're penciling in, which we're still waiting confirmation. We want to do an expedition cruise. So we're looking at one by a company called HX Expedition, which is a division of Hurtigruten, which is an Arctic cruise. So we're just trying to find the right time, the right period to go on that one.
Would that be your first expedition cruise?
No, we've done some before down right at the bottom of Chile and Argentina. So we've done that before, but not for a while. So looking forward to doing that. We're trying to slot in a couple of river cruises because we don't do so many of those. But we do want to get back into that. We used to do river cruising from time to time, but we've got out of the habit. We want to get back into that.
Very good. Refresh my memory. From the last show, do you have, and you probably checked a couple off from the last show, do you have a cruising or travel bucket list?
Just not so much. I would like to go back through the Suez Canal when that reopens, because that's effectively blocked off. You can't do that yet because that's a fantastic journey. Haven't really done all around Iceland and around there. We want to do Baffin Bay in Greenland. Haven't done that. I'd like to do more of you can do some Amazon cruises, both inland and also on the coastal areas around there. Like to do that. Again, just try to push the boundaries, but obviously budget is much more expensive to do some of these things. So then it's a question of, do you do less cruising that's more special, or do you just try to bang in as many cruises as a lower price point as you can?
You mentioned the Suez Canal. I told you I've gone on 2 cruises in the last month, and one was the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
We went down on the Rotterdam.
We did exactly that cruise ourselves. We like the Rotterdam. Do you like the Rotterdam?
Yes, yeah. I did a podcast a couple of months ago. It was our top 10 cruises of all time. And at the end of the show, I said my next cruise is on Rotterdam. And since that is the flagship of Holland America, that may very well supplant something that's on this top 10 list. It didn't quite do that. It was very nice. And we certainly love going through the Panama Canal. But, Rotterdam was nice, but I didn't see a whole lot of difference. I've only been on one other Holland America ship. That was New Amsterdam. And I didn't see a whole lot of difference. That's a smaller ship, a lower class. I didn't see a whole lot of difference between New Amsterdam and Rotterdam. So it was very nice, but, not one of my all-time best cruises.
I think it's a case, that ship, if I was to put my finger on it, it's a ship that doesn't really get many things wrong. So when you first think about it, you think, well, does it have any standout features? I think that for a lot of people, the music walk is a lot of fun. So if you're into music, you might like that. But I think it sometimes goes under the radar because people think it's an average ship. It doesn't shine or or isn't brilliant in any particular one. But I think it doesn't get many things wrong either. So if you're looking for a cruise that doesn't annoy you, that's possibly one. I mean, or maybe it did annoy you. Did it annoy you, Paul?
No, not at all. Now I will say this. A lot of people will talk about Holland America as being a much older demographic. So my first time on Holland America was early this year, but it was a theme cruise. It was the Soul Train cruise. And so obviously for that, you're not going to have an older demographic. Your demographic was pretty spread, throughout. Uh, but when I went on the Rotterdam, I did notice it definitely is a much older demographic than I'm used to. And that's not a criticism. I mean, I'm an older American, but it reminded me when I was in Florida. I lived in Florida for a few years, and I would go in the grocery store, and some of the cashiers would call me young man. That's what I ran into a lot on Rotterdam. People who would call me young man, and I'm no young man by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, I liked Rotterdam. There's no question. Holland America is an older demographic, though.
Yeah, I think that would be absolutely fair to
Yep,
say.
yep. Well, Bill, before we let you go, I like to close with some questions. So for second timers, I have different questions. Let me first say welcome to the Ritzy Travel Guide fans and friends listening. Uh, we hope that you have enjoyed what you have heard, and we'll come back to the Joy Cruising Podcast for other episodes. Bill, so that your fans and friends and my listeners can get to know you better, let me ask a few questions I like to ask repeat guests. First one's a softball. Tell our listeners and your friends, how do you and Mrs. Ritzy spend your me time?
Well, Mrs. Ritzy loves cooking and she's very, very good at it. So I don't have to go anywhere near the kitchen, which is fine by me. I enjoy tinkering, but when she's so much better at it than me, then I'm more than delighted for doing that. She also, I mean, I think maybe some people think that when I shoot the videos, they think I pretend that she's in the gym. She does go to the gym. She's absolutely into her fitness. So I think that's the reverse side of her cooking. She is so dedicated to her fitness. She's at the gym 3-4 times a week, and that keeps her totally balanced, and she's happy with that. So those would be her two favorite occupations. As for me, as I'm sure you probably know, editing. Unfortunately, when you take video, it also needs to be edited. So I spend a lot of time I don't have an editor. A lot of people said, well, why don't you get an editor? Because I like to be able to choose what goes in it. And as you edit a video, you sometimes change your mind how it's going to go as you go along. You think, well, maybe I should emphasize this or emphasize that. So I spend a lot of time in the editing booth. We do quite a lot of walking. I enjoy walking. I certainly don't have the frenetic sort of pace that she has, but we enjoy doing that. So, and photography. I enjoy photography.
Okay. What are you listening to right now in terms of music or podcasts or audiobooks? All of the above.
Yes. I listen to a lot of and watch on TV a lot of travel programs. Not because I'm trying necessarily just to do one thing in my life, which is travel, but I'm seriously fascinated by travel and history. Those are the two things. I've been toying with the idea of starting a history channel, because history has always been one of my loves. I love to imagine what it would be like going in a time machine back in time to Victorian times or to certain periods in many countries' history, what it would have been like. So I love watching history documentaries and renovation. I like to buy old clocks and renovate them, old furniture or antique pieces and renovate those. I have no great skill at it, but I enjoy that. So yes, I have toyed with the idea of starting history. I put out a couple of videos before. One was on the history of aviation, and the other was on the history of cruising, and they got some of my biggest viewing figures because I think there is within everybody a fascination of where we've come from and what was the difference. That's the main thing to me. What was like we discussed the differences between cruise ships. What's the difference between how our life is now and how it was in the past? I find endlessly fascinating.
So you have on your YouTube channel the history of cruising?
Yeah, and the history of aviation.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'd like to see those. So I'll just,
Those are two of the highest watched videos of the lot.
oh, so I just go to your channel and do a search.
Yes.
Yep, I'm gonna do that. I'm looking forward to that. Uh,
What?
Go ahead.
No, one's called How Cruising Used to Be, and the other one's called How Flying Used to Be.
There you go. How about movies? You enjoy movies?
Yes, we do. We do go out to the movies. I suppose, like everybody else, you don't go out so much anymore. You watch them all on Netflix, don't
Yeah,
you?
yeah. Anything to turn the listeners on to?
We have quite an eclectic. We watch a lot of We tend to watch more documentaries than movies. We like again. It sounds like I keep banging on about history. But we like period dramas. We like a lot of those. We like to watch a lot of crime and detective movies. Whodunits, solving them or not solving them.
Did you watch the Netflix one documentary? What's Amy Bradley?
Yes, and also the poop cruise. Both of those have been doing the rounds,
Yeah.
haven't they? Yeah, I mean that keeps hitting the news headlines, isn't it? What happened to Amy? And I wonder if anybody will ever find out.
My belief is she went overboard.
It's probably the most likely. I mean, was she smuggled out in a suitcase or in a trunk? I mean, that's less
Yeah, I
likely.
don't believe any of that. I mean, I think that Netflix tried hard to over dramatize things and suggest that maybe she's living another life, but I don't believe any of that. But who knows, Um, okay. Uh, what's your favorite movie of all time? You
Oh,
or Mrs. Ritzy, you and Mrs. Ritzy's respectively
um,
favorite movies of
I
all time.
I quite like spectacles, dramas. I would say Gladiator. I enjoy Gladiator. I thought that was a good movie. Again, it mixes history with action and everything else.
Hmm.
Um, I suppose if we're carrying on the cruise theme, sounds like I'm very one-dimensional. I thought obviously Titanic was a good movie. I enjoy time travel. I watch a lot of time travel. Well, not a lot. How many other? If there's a time travel movie out there, I will watch it.
Bill, it has been great speaking with you again. Thanks for coming back on the Joy of Cruising podcast. There are a handful, not too many, who have been on the Joy of Cruising podcast 3 times. You can bet a year or so from now, I'll be reaching out because your cruising history fascinates me. I'd like to be able to do what you do. I mean that trip to Asia that you went over. I mean that just sounds amazing, amazing.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me, Paul. Absolutely delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me back.
All righty, all righty. Any special plans for the holidays?
No, we're having some downtime for a couple of weeks because we've been on, well, I can't even say on the road, on the seas so much. So we're hosting for these Christmas holidays. So you can imagine Mrs. Ritzy in the kitchen. She's got I think she's going to do some roast pork and she's going to do some fish, and I shall pretend that I'm doing something that I'm not. And we've got the whole family. There's 4 generations in one household, so I'm hoping I shall be there on mulled wine and glühwein duty. You can imagine me doing that one, Paul.
Well, have a wonderful holiday season, and I look forward to chatting with you next year. All the best to Ritzy Travel Guide, and as I like to say, we'll see you on the ocean.
Thank you so much, Paul.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99 can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.